Hey there, quilters. It's Marianne Fontana, Fontana Originals. I am working with the new 2-inch numbers die from AccuQuilt, and I'm making building blocks, baby blocks, whatever you want to call them. And this is my project. So I'm having a lot of fun. They're 2-inch numbers, and they're really cool. I used a 3.5-inch cut square, which in the 6-inch cube would be shape 1. It's 3-inch finish, but we're not finishing it. We're just sewing a zigzag stitch along the raw edge. Now, I used felt, and I used a iron-on fusible interfacing, not a fusible to stick the letters with, a fusible to give the felt structure like you'd put in a garment. So it was iron-on fusible. And if you look, the back of them are all white. I actually ironed it on the piece of the felt, and then I cut the shapes out that I needed. Just a cautionary, when you're ironing the interfacing onto the felt, iron it from the interfacing side. You know, you're going to put the glue side to the felt. Don't press from the felt. It's very thick. It's hard for the heat to get through, and you could melt it. So do it from the interfacing side, and just do it gently, and you'll feel it stick right away. It's pretty quick. And then just cut your shapes out. It actually gives the blocks a little more structure, and it's a lot easier to sew it together. And it gives your thread something to hold on to, because sometimes the felt is pretty porous, if you know what I mean. I wanted to show you how to sew the squares together, because you might say, well, how am I supposed to sew the block? It's really not difficult. First of all, sew 4 together. You're sewing wrong sides together, and you're laying them, and you're doing, I used a blanket stitch. Here, let's see this side, that this looks a little better. Can you see that? Let's look at them. And I used it on my sewing machine. It's actually a blanket stitch in the quilting section if you have one. And I set it at 5 by 5 because I wanted it to come deep into the felt and the interfacing so it would catch. So I've sewn the 4 together. Before I connect them, I'm going to sew the top on and the bottom on, and then this piece is going to be open, and I'm going to stuff it. But I wanted to show you how to sew the top and bottom on. I mean, sewing these are really easy. You just sew 4 in a row, and so that's it. Let's go to the sewing machine. Okay? I put the numbers, as I showed you, 4 numbers in a row. Each of the blocks has 4 numbers. One has 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there's 9, 10, 11, 12. And I did 2 different shapes. So the top and bottom of each of the cubes is going to be a shape. Okay, and the numbers are around. So I've done the 4 pieces together. And now I'm going to sew one of the shapes to the top and then one to the bottom. Okay, so in this case, this is the one. Now, I'm going to start at one end, and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to place this right sides together here along what would be the top, you know, the top end of it. Make sure it's right sides up, although at this point it doesn't matter. I could use it as the bottom just as easily. And now I'm using a clear foot. I'm not using a walking foot, and while you would think for this kind of a thickness you'd want a walking foot, I need the maneuverability because this is getting very thick, and I've got to shove a lot of this felt all around it as I sew, and especially once I stuff it to sew the end, I won't get it into a walking foot. So I'm doing it this way, and I'm using a blanket stitch. I have it set at 5.5, and I'm using a variegated thread in the top and in the bottom. And I'm just gonna let it sew. Make sure it stays straight, and you want the end of that blanket stitch just going over where the 2 ends meet. I'm gonna slow down, and I'm not going to sew to the end. Can you see that? Wait, let's move up. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. I've sewn right to there. And that's the nice thing about the clear foot. Let me just cut it. You can see what you're doing. It's always helpful. So you see I've stopped. And I have the variegated thread, but I've stopped there. I need room to pivot. And I'll show you. I got it back out again or you won't see it. Come on. There we go. All right, so now I have the top piece and I've got the rest of the 3 numbers here. And I'm going to do is turn this and line it up, because it's on the top, with the top of the next number. See, it goes right across. Okay, and I'm going to make sure this piece is not getting caught. You know, so you kind of, here's, see how it's straight? And this is kind of folded over now. It's like a right angle. Now, I'm kind of trying to match these pieces up. I'm actually trying to match the red and the blue. And this one, and this end here. And I'm going to lay it flat, and I'm going to move over, oh, maybe 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to start to sew. And as soon as it takes 2 stitches, I'm going to press my reverse. Then I'm going to go back to that corner and reinforce it, almost to the point where I go off it. Now I'm going back over. Now that's going to secure both the ends on either side. And I'm going to sew. I remember I'm not going to go all the way to the end. All right, I'm stopping. Can you see? All right, I got like 1 stitch. So we'll cut it. Let's see, I left another piece right there. So let's, now I'm going to take it. I got the next one. What's this? This is number 6 now. I got 2 more to go. I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to match up this side with there, put my finger. You notice I don't use pins. I don't like pins. I stick myself. You know, just they get in the way. I find I pin wrong, and then I have to take them out anyway, or I've pinned them, and then as I try to wrestle it onto the, under the needle, I've moved them. So I don't pin. It just is not. And I find this works out just fine for me. If you want to pin, you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to take a stitch or 2, and then we'll reverse. Oh, I got a lot of thread in there. Let's get some of that, because you know how difficult it is to pull out thread that's like really sewn in there. There it is. See that? There we go. We'll get that out of there. Right down. Line this back up again. Make sure it's like just about even there. Press my reverse so I can line it up. Reinforce it and go forward. And I'm using, as I said, multicolor thread. Just because, well, it's like a kid's play block, so I thought it'd be fun. Now I'm getting a little jumping, you know, see the way it's spreading, and that's because I don't have a walking foot, and I could just press it. It's felt, it's stretchy. And again, not quite to the end. Now I'm on the last one. We've gone just around. See? Look, I got myself a box going here. And I'm just going to go right ahead. And I'm going to move this top one out of the way, which is the number 8, and match up those 2 blue pieces, the pieces right there. And I'm going to make sure the piece, remember we have the piece on the other side over here. We don't want to catch it. And make sure that's flat and line this up. So I'll go back over here, pull this out. You know, it takes a little finagling, which means like playing around with it. I'm not sure if that's a local word here or not. Oh, okay, so reverse all the way to the end, catches that corner real nice, and back up you go. See, if you tried to start and go end to end, you'd probably end up eating the thread, and you would have to rip it out. Or by starting a little further down, you know, it's not a tough place. It's easy. Okay. Here we go, we're going to the end. Now, I'm going to do that. I'm not stopping quite at the end because I still have this side to sew at some point. Okay, I'm good with that. I'm going to cut it off. Show you. Yeah, there we go. There's the 5 and the 6 and the 7 and the 8. We just sewed on, or I sewed on, you watched. And I went around, and all I did was do it on the inside and go around. But I remember I stopped right there. I said, oh, there's an open seam. So now I'm going to go in. I'm going to put the other piece on. I'm going to do it exactly the same way. The only thing I want to do is see how this, I guess it doesn't matter which way I position. I'm putting a heart on. But I like to start at the side with the open on the left. And I like to place the piece here. And that's my first side. And then you don't sew to the end. And this is where you pivot. And then this side will come up and go there. Let me see if I can get this back now. Oh, isn't modern technology wonderful? I'm trying to zoom in. There we go. I guess that's good enough. You got the idea, right? All right, so in, put it down. And again, I'm not going to go really to the end. I always figure it's going to eat everything if I do. But I can, and I'm not going to back up because I still have to sew the other side in at some point. Let me make sure I'm straight. See right there. Okay, let me get down a little. How's that? Okay. All right. Oh, I'm brave. I went a little far. Cut it. I just take it and flip it. Go to the next one. And I usually like to go to the far end first because then it gives me something to hold on to. And then I can kind of pull the other pieces out of the way and make sure that back piece isn't in. Oops, sorry. I'm saying sorry like I'm hitting you. All right, and there I am. There's my flat surface to start on. Get my finger on the reverse button, getting ready. One, all right, reverse. To the end, all right, stop. All right, there we go. May have stopped a little short. Sometimes it takes an extra stitch on me. You know, you get to know your machine and you'll know like where the stitches go and, you know, how many it'll take and how it responds. And again, all right, stop towards the end. Don't go all the way to the end. Pull it out. Go to the next one. Yeah, go. Yeah, right there. Finger. Make sure nothing's obvious sticking out. And fold it down. And you just want to make sure that this back one, there's a block back. You're not sewing it in. I've done that. Okay, we're admitting to it. All right, I'm going to go start a little. Reverse. All right. I just want to make sure it's up. See, it's slipping out of the way. It's a good thing. Got to check. All right, I'm back on track. And again, it's pulling a little, but I'll just... And I'm not really concerned, you know, that's kind of the nature of felt. And if it bothers you, you just kind of push it back in a little, like that. There we go. Not a big deal. All right, I'm not going to sew to the end either, so... Okay, and then I have the last side. See that how fast this was? We're on the next side. Last side. Let me see, then that's the one that was left open between the 5 and the 8. So I'm going to match them up. Side to side. See, that's why you don't sew to the end, because then you have something to work with at each side. Now, as you do this, it gets a little bit more challenging to get it underneath. But that's why I use this, because with a big walking foot, I would never be able to get it in there. And then if I did, I wouldn't be able to see. So I've sacrificed a little of the underneath, you know, pulling of the fabric with visibility. All right, so the 1, 2. Now back up all the way to the end. And then come forward. Oh, and if it gets a little stuck, just pick your foot up. It usually releases it. And once you get past the critical part, you can rearrange it if you need to. So I'm just going to finish this side. And I want to try to straighten this out just a little. See, it's a little crooked looking. Okay. Give it a little pull in the back. Okay. And again, I'm going to leave that little bit of a space. Okay, so this is it. What we did, and there's the heart. I sewed it to the 4 sides, and this is the original, remember it was 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we sewed the top, and then we sewed the bottom. Okay, now it doesn't look like much right now, but it'll clean up once you stuff it. Here's my stuffing space, and I'll clip all the threads. And I'm gonna just stuff it. And actually what I use is shredded leftover batting. I actually use a lot of old pieces of batting that are like basically useless for anything. And I had purchased, I don't know if you can see this. This is a studio cutting die, and they are 1/4-inch cuts. You say, what in tarnation are you going to use 1/4-inch cuts for? Well, I was working on a project and an experiment that was a failure. However, the good news is I found a really cool use for it, and I shred all my old pieces. I wanted you to see what it did is it cut. It's like spaghetti now. It's an 1/8, it's a 1/4-inch cutter, and I use it for stuffing. See? That I have my stuffing is just fill the blocks. And you know what's really amazing? You use an awful lot more stuffing than you think you will. But anyway, this is one that's finished. So I think it's kind of cool. I actually made 6 blocks. I had to make 2 sets of numbers, 1 through 12. And I made 6 different shapes, 2 of each. So 12 shapes, 24 numbers, makes 6 blocks, 6 sides, 6 colors. Hope you enjoyed. Happy quilting.